Thank you, Nancy. I hope you're enjoying the International Stroke Conference here in the hometown of the American Heart Association and the American Stroke Association. I want to thank those of you who have traveled from across the country to be with us here today. I especially want to thank those of you who have traveled internationally. And of course, we are glad that we are joined by those of you tuning in remotely. Thanks also to the outstanding leaders of the Stroke Council, Dr. Patrick Lydon, Dr. Stephanie Hanaji, and Dr. Peter Panagos. And of course, thanks to Dr. Tudor Joven, Dr. Lauren Sansing, and the entire ISC Programming Committee for the outstanding agenda for ISC 2023. Next, I want to recognize the two neurologists we honored in 2022 as distinguished scientists. From my home institution, Dr. Bruce Obiagele and Dr. Ralph Sacco. For Dr. Sacco, this was not merely a career achievement award. This honor recognized the work he was still doing, even in the face of his life-threatening diagnosis. Dr. Sacco cherished every role he held within our organization. This included his tenure as editor-in-chief of Stroke, the position he held from July 2020 until his health no longer allowed. I know he was pleased that the new name atop the masthead is R.G. Hillis, Dr. R.G. Hillis. She is the journal's 9th editor-in-chief and the first female. Stroke is in its 53rd year and is among the association's flagship publications. Based on statistics from Clarivate Analytics, Stroke is a top-ranked journal among journals in the subject of clinical neurology and peripheral vascular disease. The AHA's newest scientific journal, Stroke, Vascular and Interventional Neurology, launched in late 2021. Dr. Ashutosh Jadhav is the inaugural editor-in-chief. The journal has become recognized for its podcast, Access. A new podcast is available with each issue. Now, I would like to talk a bit about current American Stroke Association and American Heart Association initiatives. You may know that the AHA has committed to fund $100 million in new research focused on solutions to health inequities and structural racism, and expanding opportunities for those underrepresented in research. I am proud to say that we have already exceeded this commitment, largely through projects you see on the screen. In recent years, AHA has added specific requirements for its large research programs to ensure the teams are diverse. For instance, center applications must include at least one institution that primarily serves individuals from groups that are underrepresented in science, such as historically Black colleges and universities and Hispanic serving institutions. At least 25% of key personnel of the research team and at least half of named trainees must be from groups that are underrepresented in science. Importantly, these elements affect the overall evaluation score and the chance of funding. The past two slides, looking at health disparities and diversity in research, are especially important to me because these are the areas where I have spent much of my career. As a cardiologist at the University of California, San Francisco, and as a researcher working towards population-level solutions, I study the health effects of financial distress. I remain focused on this for a simple, sad reason. Far too often, patients tell me, "Don't let me die because I don't have enough money." We know that those facing economic adversity also face major health problems, particularly cardiovascular disease, and particularly among those, stroke is all too common. Many jarring statistics illuminate a marked wealth gap by race and ethnicity, both in the United States and abroad. This makes the playing field uneven. And that uneven playing field limits intergenerational health and wealth, making economic progress nearly impossible. Education seemingly would help bridge the gap. However, it's not that simple. While education does increase wealth, the impact is not the same for all communities. For example, statistics show that Black persons need a postgraduate degree just to attain similar wealth as white people with a high school degree. Whatever a person earns, spending their income on medical bills strains their budget. About 12% of people have difficulty paying medical bills. This includes 20% of middle-income people. The percentages are even higher for low-income and younger persons. However, the news isn't all that bad. Some people who experience adversity will not experience poor health outcomes. Understanding why requires a look at the taxonomy of psychological stress. Positive and tolerable stress are both associated with healthy brain architecture. Examples of positive or tolerable stress include writing a grant or delivering this presentation. Then there is toxic stress. Toxic stress, such as stress caused by unrelenting, lifelong discrimination and economic adversity, is markedly deleterious, especially in the absence of adequate social and emotional support. It is exacerbated by chaos, abuse, and neglect. It is associated with unhealthy brain architecture. Thus, the key change we're seeking is to move people from enduring toxic stress to facing more tolerable stress. This powerful shift is possible. Policymakers and medical professionals can lead systemic changes. You can be involved by advocating through the American Heart Association's You're the Cure network and in your own research. For example, during this Heart Month, the AHA has launched the Be the Beat Challenge, which aims for every household to have at least one person who knows CPR. This is important as it relates to disparities because statistics show that women, Blacks, and Hispanics are less likely to receive CPR regardless of socioeconomic status or neighborhood environment. In your own research, I encourage you to examine the interplay between stressors like financial stress and stroke, particularly in diverse racial and ethnic groups. Another area of importance, especially as we highlight heart disease in women this month, is the need for focused research on the superwoman schema and stroke. A lived concept and outcome that disproportionately affects women of color, especially Black women. These are important ways of addressing stroke disparities. If you're interested in more details on this subject, the QR code you will see will take you to my Connor lecture at Scientific Sessions that was dedicated to this subject. However, as you go forward with this, please remember this simple fact. We need not let people die from the effects of economic adversity. The systemic changes I mentioned come from advocacy. And advocacy, of course, is a major emphasis for AHA and ASA. Our top advocacy priorities for stroke are on the screen. And here is something I know many of you will be pleased to hear. The AHA Advocacy Coordinating Committee has commissioned a new policy statement on stroke rehabilitation. Publication is expected later this year. Again, I thank you for joining us for this meeting. We are looking forward to a phenomenal event. Now, I am pleased to introduce Dr. Tudor Jovin, Chair of the International Stroke Conference Programming Committee. Tudor.